Today's show is brought to you by homebrewsupply.com. Homebrew Supply is your one-stop shop for brew day ingredients, recipes, equipment, and more. Take advantage of everyday low pricing and everyday flat rate shipping only at homebrewsupply.com. Go to homebrewsupply.com right now and use our promo code HHH to get 5% off your order. homebrewsupply.com. Let us help make your brew day better.
Entertaining shows with content that spreads information and sparks discourse throughout the community. This is the Pearl Media Network.
Hello and welcome to the Homebrew Happy Hour. This is the show where we supply the answers to your homebrewing questions and discuss all things related to craft beer. If you have a question you would like us to discuss on a future episode, you can go to homebrewhappyhour.com and click on that submit a question link at the top of the page, where now you can call or text them in by using 325-305-6107. I am your host, Joshua Stubing. Today I am joined by the Director of Operations at CMBecker.com, right over there, Mr. James Carlson. My thumb never makes it enough. Like I forget, when I do the lazy thumb, it looks like I'm just pointing behind me, but I have to get in front of the camera, that way, and go, there's Mr. James. How are you doing today?
You're that way.
I know. I am that way. Yeah, see, we're pointing the right way, I think. How's your day going, dude?
Oh, man, it's busy.
Yeah. Are y'all getting bad weather up there? Because we just had a hell of a storm through here. No,
it's gorgeous. It rained on me coming to work this morning, but it was still, nearly 70 degrees this morning when I got up. And I'm ready for the cold weather to roll in.
No kidding. I don't want to rub salt in wounds by asking this question, but are you in the vet yet? Or is the vet back?
No, it's they're still waiting on parts.
Are they really?
Yeah, body parts from General Motors right now. Logistics are just crazy, and a lot of that stuff has to come out of the where they build them.
Yeah, totally. Manufacturing. Yeah. No, you didn't spend any time with that company. You don't know.
Yeah, I should know this, man. Some troll's gonna just eviscerate me on the comments.
I'll edit
Bowling
it out.
Green, Kentucky. Excuse me.
I'll edit it out, James. Don't worry. No,
I'll leave it in.
Of course I will.
Spice.
That would require work to have to edit it out. But anyways, we are happy for y'all to join us here on the Homebrew Happy Hour. Todd is missing. He's in my neck of the woods right now, helping his kids out, working on, I guess, home stuff. He had to bring Liz in for they've been in y'all's area for 9-ish years, but their doctors and appointments and stuff are still always in Austin. So they had to come down here, and I think he's looking for excuses to drive the Tesla, to be honest.
Man, that car is sweet.
Isn't it sweet?
I would love to have one.
It is sweet.
And I'm a gearhead, and I would totally have one in a minute if I could afford it.
It is sweet, and they had to get stuff done today because it's his pop's birthday. Happy birthday,
Pierce,
Mr. Burns.
Happy birthday.
You should, and it's his brother, who is Pierce Jr. It's his birthday. He's 61, so 86 and 61. I always like to remind Todd's brother he's older than my dad. He doesn't think that's funny.
He does not look 61.
Yeah, he looks like 65. I'm kidding, Pierce. He doesn't watch this. But we are trying to. Todd told me we're going to be able to get Pierce Sr. on the 200th episode next week.
Oh, good deal.
Or pardon me, 2 weeks, not next week. But that's a great time for me to segue right now. Did Todd tell you who our guest is going to be on next week? That we're having a guest speaker? He didn't tell you? Oh.
He may have, and I don't remember.
So he booked the author of the alt beer book.
Oh, yes, I did know that.
Horst Dornbush is going to be on the show next week, dude. I'm excited because how long we've had the alt beer book. Todd bought it for you shortly after I bought it. And that's been 2 years, 3 years? When did he buy the alt beer book for us? Or he bought it for you. I had to buy my own copy.
I can tell you real quick.
Yeah. For those, while he's doing that, let me tell y'all, if you are interested in alt beer, the history of it, and having some recipes, the alt beer book on Amazon.
Yeah, maybe it was 2 years ago.
Yeah, you have your copy. I have mine.
Yeah,
we'll have Horst do a digital signing next week. But he's going to be on. Todd's. So normally when we do like a showcase of like, we're going to feature a guy to talk about whatever, their club or their brand or whatever. I've done it before just as we'll ask questions and one-on-one. Todd was like, first off, I'm on it for sure, talking about him. So I was like, I'm on it for sure. I want to talk about and he goes, we are not keeping James away from this guy. And I was like, this is perfect. So Todd's going to be running the conversation mainly. We'll see how that goes. But he's going to give him your alt beer recipe to critique. And I I was like, run this by James.
In fact, he already emailed it to him.
Oh, no.
So I'm sure he's probably going to eviscerate me on that as well.
But I don't know. One of the things I've never done, which maybe I'll do after the show, or sometime in the future, not after this specific show. He has a handful of recipes in here like one's based off Udige, I think, and there's another one that I believe is closely related to Schumacher, the dryer alt. I might try that. I like it just for the history of it. I also I took it out of my bookshelf just to say to show I have it. Obviously, I have the Kolsch book as well, not by the same guy. This is by Eric Warner.
It looks like by the same publisher.
Yeah, they did a series on German beers, and there's some recipes in here. I was like, maybe I'll try them just to like. There's a more hop forward Kolsch in here, and I don't know. These
we would call that a lawnmower beer, right?
Yes, exactly. And these two beers are the ones I've always said, like, if I had the dream brew pub, it would be to just brew alts and Kolsch and serve Mexican food.
And that's it.
I
would be happy to open up an alt beer brew pub, and that's it.
Yes.
No other beers, just one style of beer, and that's it. Just like they do in Germany.
And I would go. I would be
them over there.
I'd be your number one customer. I swear on my life. Because I was trying to explain to my wife. We were at my parents' house this weekend on Sunday, and the cream ale still, guys. Oh my God, the cream ale is so good. And my dad and I incorrectly spoke last week. I thought he kegged that Irish stout, and he did not. He was just cold crashing it. So we transferred to the keg, got a taste of it. I texted you and Todd. It came out phenomenal. It has more coffee notes in it than I believe it should. And I was like, we didn't even put coffee, but y'all were telling me that it's the malt.
Yeah, that dark roasted malt imparts that flavor. So like if you were going to do like chocolate malt, you would get a little bit of that. But if you do the black patent malt, I always use very, very little amounts because the more you put in there, the more it'll taste like coffee. Because that's basically what they're doing to coffee beans. Same process.
Makes total sense. And it's very present in the aroma. And the taste, it's subtle. So that's where I was like, okay, I'm not disappointed. Even if it was very straight coffee forward and the taste too, I still wouldn't be disappointed because it's still very drinkable, but it's not what we were going for, because you don't get a Guinness from a pub and it's not going to be coffee forward. Right. It's subtle. And I mean, you really got to have a good palate to be like, the coffee from, I mean, because Guinness isn't known for being coffee forward, but
it definitely isn't, but they still use the really dark roasted malt. They just use it very little amounts.
And they do their brew day right. Remember, this was when me and my dad, the element failed, whether it was because of the damage already done to it or whatnot. And we had to transfer all that 10, 15 minutes into a mash over to the foundry. And thankfully, I'm just glad we have drinkable beer.
I was just, you stole my thunder. Yeah. Anytime that you can have those kind of issues and come out with a drinkable batch of beer, it's not all lost. It's when you have one that you have to dump.
Yes. Oh, I would have cried. I would have cried if we had to dump it. But it is also very sessionable. I think we came out at 4. I think it came out low because I guess
that's perfect.
Yeah, it was like 3. It was like 3. It was like 3.8 or 4. Or it was hovering right below 4. And I was like, Dad, we can just drink more. I mean, it tastes good. That's all that matters to me. I don't need.
Sure. And keep in mind, the original Guinness is below 4% alcohol.
Right.
It's 3 something.
Right. In the States, what is it? Like 5? Like nowadays. Like now. But you're right.
And I think the reason why they designed it that way is so, Irish can have their beer in their pub and not go blotto drunk.
Which that's what I, bringing it back to German beer culture, like how you're saying, like get a brew pub and only make alt. I love that when we go there and you can, I mean, what is an alt beer on a high ABV? 5 on a high?
Maybe.
Right?
I think the BJCP guidelines 4.5 to 5.
Right.
My alt beer is never over 4.5.
Exactly. And that's just, and it's so drinkable and you can enjoy your time. And they serve it in 8.5 ounces, give or take. And so we can share 10 over the course of an hour and a half or whatever, or maybe 2 hours, or maybe less. It depends on what kind of a night we're having, but you're never plastered. It's something about that, like, and you know, they love refilling you or bringing you a new one, but they don't go overboard. Like if you have half a glass, they're not just putting a fresh one in. They're waiting for it to get like a third, you know, like where you have a third left, or you can always cover it up with your coaster and they won't give you a new one. But
right,
that's what I was trying to tell.
I know, you know, you and I both have got to experience that, and we're lucky to have that opportunity. But one thing I noticed in Germany, and especially in Schlüssel and Füchchen and Irriga, is you don't see any drunk people.
No,
I'm not saying they don't feel good, because Germans love to talk loud when they're really feeling good.
Yeah, louder.
Notice that,
but louder.
But you know, I remember the last time I was there, we were walking down. We were walking down the world's longest bar, that street, and there was a guy, and he was walking right in front of the Schlüssel gift store. And I thought he was kind of walking at an angle. You could tell he'd had a little too much to drink. And I swear I thought he was going to go plow right into that picture window right in front, you know, where when you walk by, they've got the wine bottles and the glasses and all of that.
Oh, yeah.
He was headed straight for that. That's the first time I've seen a really drunk person in Dusseldorf.
And he probably wasn't a German. He was probably American. That's what when they see me and Todd with our arms around each other, they're like, "Oh, foreigners."
Foreigners, Americans.
But yeah, Americans. But yeah, if you ever get that, you ever get that brewery going, let me know, because alt beer is. Oh yeah, spoiler alert. We're having Horst Dornbusch on next week, the author of the alt beer book and a ton of other books on German beers. He's a German American, born in Germany, and I don't remember when he got his citizenship here. But he's gonna help us tweak our recipe is what the idea is behind Todd, and then we're gonna brew that on our 200th episode. So everyone who was hoping we were gonna do a kettle sour, sorry to crush your dreams, but we're doing an alt beer, which couldn't make me happier. Because I'm going to get 5 gallons of this. I'm going to have to steal it or something, but I'm going to get 5 gallons of this batch for damn sure. I would love to have an alt beer on my tap around Thanksgiving time. Like that. That's the perfect. I need to brew
another one.
Oh, that's the perfect holiday beer. So we're going to have this cream ale. There's still about 3 gallons left, 2.5. We got 5 gallons of this dry Irish now coffee stout, and then we're gonna have an alt beer on tap. Again, assuming I steal 5 gallons of it. Todd's not here to tell me you're not getting any because you didn't contribute, but I'm contributing because it's the 200th episode, Todd. But so yes, 200th episode's coming up.
So we're going to be doing that at his barn, right?
We are a week from today. Well, I'll be up there a week from today. We're recording this on Thursday. So we'll do it on
his system, and we can probably get 17 gallons in the fermenter.
Yeah.
And that'll split it. We can split that 3 ways.
Yeah. And even if it came out lower, I'll take the 2 gallons or whatever's left. I'll take it.
We can make that happen.
I know. Todd's the one who's to be giving me crap. So that 200th episode's coming up in a couple weeks. Next week, though, is a very special episode. You want to look out for that. And we're recording it kind of later on that Thursday. So, I'm going to be up there 2 weeks in a row because we're going to record that with Mr. Dornbusch while I'm up there on Thursday, probably from the barn as well. Because I'm going to have to bring my whole setup rig for it. And then the next week, I'll just leave my rig and all that there because we're going to be live streaming during the day for our 200th episode. We're going to live stream to our private Facebook group for members of our Patreon. And we're also going to have a YouTube link in case you're in our Patreon and you don't do Facebook, which is perfectly fine. That's a very rational way to live your life right now. And, if you don't do Facebook and you're not in our private group, you can just message me, joshua@homebrewhappyhour.com. I'll get you that YouTube stream link. And I've got it now to where we can actually read the chat from YouTube as well. So we can interact with both places, the private Facebook group and the YouTube. So it's going to be a lot of fun. Yeah, it's going to be a great time. Speaking of Patreon, our September recipe kits, everyone's been telling me everyone's been submitting what they want. The choices this month were between a pumpkin ale or that dry Irish stout, which is a Guinness clone. If you've told me what you want already, all your stuff is shipping out this coming Monday. I was told by Joe September the 21st, and you should get tracking numbers by the end of that day. If you don't get your tracking number, if you tell me anytime between now 9/17 and the evening of Sunday the 20th, if you tell me which one you want in our Patreon and you don't get tracking by the end of Monday, please message me, because sometimes our mails go to spam. Sometimes the FedEx system that is integrated with our shipping system doesn't always send it out. Sometimes the shipping guys forget to put in, they're doing so much throughout the day. Sometimes it happens, and I hate when it happens to members of our Patreon, but c'est la vie, man. It happens. Yeah. So if you don't get your tracking number, let me know. I promise you, I'm very responsive to messages. As soon as you get it, I'm on it. After I wake up from my nap or level up my video game character or whatever it is Todd accuses me of doing. But James, I think that's all I have for the small talk. We've got 4 questions as usual. You're gonna have to take the brunt of the show, man. Just Todd's not
No,
here.
that's fine. I think first question is a real good one, considering had a little bit of that with smash pills. Of course, a Pilsner's a lager.
Yeah.
And why don't you go ahead and read the...
Absolutely. So our first question came from our friend Drew G, who used the submission form at homebrewhappyhour.com. Drew wrote, "Hey guys, I am very new to your show, and as it so happens, I am very new to homebrewing as well. One part of the brewing process or fermentation process that I'm not grasping well is the diacetyl rest. What exactly is a diacetyl rest, and should I be doing it every time I ferment? I brew 1-gallon extract batches right now, and I am planning on making the switch to larger batches soon. Thank you for any help you can provide." Before you get into the answer, James, let me, for audio listeners, because y'all don't know, you wouldn't have known Todd's not here unless I told you. I could have imitated him the whole show. So let me imitate Todd, what he would say. "First off, why are you brewing in 1-gallon batches? That's a waste of time. You should always be doing 5 gallons because the time is the same. And da-da-da-da-da." But now that we're past that Drew is only brewing in 1-gallon batches, diacetyl rest is something my dad and I don't do, but I've always thought that it's not something you do with ales. Have I been wrong?
No, not normally. Most ale yeasts, they don't produce the diacetyl. It's only in lager yeast when you're fermenting at colder temperatures. It's slower. That's especially a lot of the German lager strains. They tend to be a little more. Diacetyl is produced when yeast eat sugar and create alcohol and carbon dioxide. And it's just a byproduct of the lager yeast. The good thing is the diacetyl rest means you just bring it up to room temp. When you get close to your final gravity, you still want to have enough sugar left for the yeast to eat the diacetyl as well, and it'll clean up on its own. Now, but there's two different types. There's the diacetyl that you create with lager yeast, and then you can get actually an infection of diacetyl. And we experienced that at HomebrewCon a couple of years back with the Lemon Drop Pilsner. We had 2 kegs, if you remember. One was fine, and the other one had that butterscotch or buttery flavor to it, and that's terrible. Diacetyl.
Yeah,
and that can be caused from. I think if you're storing it warm, and it's in there, and you don't completely sanitize, who knows what happens, but it seems like warmer temperatures tends to bring it out, but it'll take a little while for it to develop. So that if it tastes clean, like our Lemon Drop Pilsner did after fermentation, and then we cold crashed it and it tasted fine, or obviously we wouldn't have brought it, spent all that money to ship it and for HomebrewCon. But another example would be like this smash Pilsner. It's single malt, single hop Pilsner. I had some malt left over from a while back, and I thought, well, you know what? I'm just going to make a real simple lager. Brewed it. It went all the way down. It finaled at 1010, which was fairly dry for that, and it tasted real good. And I cold crashed it, kegged it, and Todd his palate is a whole lot more sophisticated than mine, and he could taste just a little hint of butterscotch or buttery flavor, and that wasn't in the yeast. So I'm afraid we may have an infection that's developing in that. So we'll just have to wait. We had some of that last night working on the Jeep, and it wasn't that bad. Todd's such a good guy. He looked at me and he said, James, there was a time when people liked diacetyl in their beer. And I looked at him like, that would not be me.
You're like, don't lie to me, man. Like, that's not nice for you to lie to me, Mr. Burns. Like, what? Come on, dude.
But the truth be told, it wasn't. It's very subtle, so it's not bad enough. It could get worse though. But currently, right now, it's not so bad that you can't enjoy the beer because it still tastes fairly decent.
Right, totally.
There's just a little hint of that. And now, every time I get a glass of it, I hear Todd when he first took a drink of it.
He gave you a complex.
I could taste a little butter in the back.
Yeah. Oh, don't let him know that it gave you a complex because then he'll exploit that.
Oh no, I told him last night we were working on the cheap, and that's when he said, "Well, he's such a good guy. He's people one time that's what they wanted.
That sounds like Todd. He's so much nicer to you. So tell me this. I don't think it's relevant. I just want to clear it up for Drew because he made it a point to tell us the size batches he brews. It doesn't matter. Diacetyl rest with a lager is necessary no matter your batch size.
It doesn't matter. It's all in the yeast. And I know the harvest yeast I use with Imperial, it produces low levels of diacetyl. So it's never been an issue for us. Here, I just told the story. I'm talking about in lagering, lager yeast. We've never had an issue with it. So don't worry about that. When you get ready to do all grain and you have temperature control and you're going to start doing lagers, then that might be something to look at. You'll definitely want to do it. What I do is when I hit about 10-20 or so, I'll warm it up to 70 degrees and I'll let it sit there and finish out. And it usually takes care of it. No problem.
I was going to say, would this be a case? Is diacetyl one of the ones where time can be your friend and mellowing it out? Or is diacetyl something that once it's there for that batch?
Well, if you don't do the rest in time and the yeast have gone dormant, in other words, they quit eating and you can't get them to revive. Basically, when the sugar's gone and the yeast is done eating and you still have diacetyl, it won't go away.
Well, that's a bummer.
You always want to catch it with just a few gravity points to go. Bring that up to room temperature. Now, this is lagers or any yeast that says it produces diacetyl. The cool thing about yeast is all the manufacturers have websites and links to those strains, and they will tell you specifically whether it produces diacetyl or not. But typically, diacetyl is produced with lager yeast, not ale.
I really wish Todd was here to defend the position that there was a time people wanted diacetyl in their beer. Is he? He's old. Don't get me wrong. Maybe he's talking like caveman days, but an ancient beer, obviously, I think people romanticize ancient beer. Like, I want to brew like the purist.
Can you imagine how bad that tasted back then?
It probably tasted like my stuff.
Well, they had no sanitation matters other than boiling water and steam. So, yeah, I can't imagine how bad. Until, the Reinheitsgebot came out and they started doing real beer yeast and research into that and developed a science into brew making. There were people there. It's an interesting read. There's a book that Todd got, audiobook about the history of beer. Mm-hmm. I'm sure he's told you about it. And we were listening to that one time on the way to the airport. And he went to the chapter where they were drinking just about anything they could ferment. They were using just about anything they could for hops, juniper leaves and stuff that was toxic, and people were getting sick and even worse, dying. And I can't imagine how bad it tasted.
I can't either. And I'm looking right now through my Audible list because I'm pretty confident he had me buy it. And this was probably years ago. But yeah, that book, gosh darn it. And I can't remember the name of it, but it is like the history of beer. Mm-hmm. And I might have had it on Google Books, but either way, very, very good read. And by read, I mean listen, because I couldn't tell you the last time I properly read a book. But Todd, he does with you though. Like what I was getting at is he's so nice, telling you how.
I have it right here.
Oh, perfect. The Brewer's Tale. That's what it is.
This is a really good read, and it goes back to the origins of beer. Really good read.
The Brewer's Tale. Maybe we'll do a Homebrew Happy Hour book club with our Patreon members.
This one's by William Bostwick.
I'll put the link.
It's really good.
I'll put the link in the show notes for the book, mainly because we do people. I'm making this about us now again because I do that. People asked if we have an Amazon affiliate account, and we do, and people use it a lot, and we thank y'all for that so much. Now, if there's like a charity or something you'd rather give to, we get that. Use smile.amazon.com or whatever. But if you're just shopping for fun or whatever, you can always go to our website and get the Amazon link. But yes, so I'll put an affiliate link for that book in these show notes. And if you happen to pick it up, let me know. And so I can give you a thank you for contributing to our Amazon affiliate account. But yeah, so to wrap up with Drew, if you're not brewing, well, and jumping right into lagers, I'm going to go on a limb and say he's not jumping into lagers. That's not usually a brand new thing to do. Right. So diacetyl rest might not be something you need to worry about yet.
No, if you're using ale yeast, most ale yeast that I've come into now, a lot of y'all got to remember, these are my opinions on this podcast. So, it may not be set in stone for you, but it's just something. It's my opinion, what I've experienced, and I would say all the ale yeast that I've used over the last years. I've never had to do nor have I ever done a diacetyl rest. It's never been an issue, but I'm real thorough about reading the yeast and what they recommend, the temperature range. Remember, if you've got a kit and you're going by the instructions, me personally, my advice to you is don't go by the yeast instructions on the kit. Go by the yeast company's instructions. They know better than the instructions in the kit. And the reason why I know that is I've done instructions for my kits, and when you've got to do 20 or 30 kits, you may not be as thorough as you should. It's just a human character flaw, but the manufacturer knows what they're doing. They know that they do lots of tests, and we saw that at Imperial when we visited. There's all kinds of culture tests that they do on the strains. They know what they're talking about. They produce the yeast. Go by with what they recommend.
Exactly. Yeah. When in doubt, trust the yeast company. And I think that's a great way to round out his question, because it is a great question, just because there are terms and techniques and processes that can be overwhelming, and until you have it broken down for you, and it's just like, oh, well, here's what diacetyl is, and here's what the rest does, and when you just bring it up to room temperature, like, oh, I could do that, it's
easy.
Yeah, the brewing lagers has had so much mystique around it. From my anecdotal observation of how people write in questions or how they talk on internet forums or whatnot, to where I like when we demystify it, and it's just like, no, brew more lagers.
It's just temperature control. If you just brew, you just ferment at a colder temp, and then there's some other steps you have to do. It's not a big deal.
Absolutely. So, Drew, thank you for submitting your question. This is a great time to remind you all, when we take your question on an episode of the Homebrew Happy Hour, we give you a $25 gift card to KegConnection.com, courtesy of the absent Mr. Todd Burns. Thank you, sir, for your generosity. Moving on to question number 2, came from our buddy Kent, who also used the submission form at homebrewhappyhour.com. Kent wrote, "What's up, fellas? I love the podcast and watch you every week. I've been brewing for about a year, and I'm a lover of bright beers. The clearer, the better. So much so, in fact, that I'm considering buying a filtration system from Northern Brewer." Ooh, I meant to mark out their name, Northern Brewer. Todd's gonna hit me. I can't say them on the air. No, we like Northern Brewer. They're good people. They aren't very expensive at all, and I'm under the impression that this will all but guarantee clear beers for me. Do you guys filter your batches ever? And if so, when do you apply the filtering? Keep creating solid content. Cheers, Kent. They're not expensive, then that can't be Northern. No, I'm kidding. That's a jab. We like Northern. We liked other Todd. I don't know if other Todd's actually still there, because we didn't have HomebrewCon this year. That's when we hang out with the marketing guys from Northern. At least they're fun guys to drink with. But filtration, Mr. Carlson, I know very little about filtration. I know that on the commercial level, they're doing it to keep their yeast out of the finished product. I mainly assumed it's so we can't propagate from their beer and discover their hidden yeast. Getting that.
Well, let me do something real quick, if you don't mind.
Oh, please take it over.
I'm gonna go grab my filter setup.
Oh, great! Yeah.
And so just give me a couple of minutes.
I will. And because I'm not going to edit any of this out, I'll keep the listeners, I'll keep y'all occupied. So my very limited knowledge on filtration, my understanding is, if you plan on bottling, you're going to have to keg first, because what filtration does is it takes the yeast out. So if you're hoping to get rid of like some of the sediment or particles from the bottom of your bottles, which can happen frequently, it's not uncommon when you only bottle your batch of homebrew, this is not going to resolve that, because if you take the yeast out and then you put your beer in the bottles and you add your priming sugar, you're going to get flat beer. You're not going to have anything left to eat. You're not going to have anything to eat out that sugar and create CO2 in the bottle. So therefore, you have to do the filtration going into a keg, and then you can use like what we use, the Blickman beer gun, which wonderful product, love it. It's made bottling not terrible, which is big for me to say. And then you can go from your keg to the bottle. So you can't filter and traditional bottle, is my understanding. James isn't here yet again, or he hasn't come back yet to correct me. And I will check my inbox, because I'm willing to be wrong on this. Wouldn't be my first time being wrong. I'm no stranger to being wrong on a lot of topics, but I do believe. Okay, James is back. What I was saying real quick. I'll go through it real quick for you, so listeners aren't getting the repeat from me. Filtering removes the yeast, so therefore, if your goal was to bottle, you can't filter before bottling, because if you remove the yeast and go into the bottle and then add your priming sugar, you're going to have flat beer, because there'll be nothing left to eat up that sugar and create carbonation. So this is a process that you have to do into a keg, and if you want to bottle, you can use like a beer gun to bottle from the keg. So now show us what you got.
Counter pressure.
Yep.
So really what's cool is if you want crystal clear beer, you can go down to 0.5 micron, but flow can affect the flow. So something really simple. Now, this is 2-week-old beer, and I used 1 micron filter. Actually, I think I got it upside down. I do. So this is what I passed this beer through. And it didn't affect flow much. It was super easy to do. The cool thing is you can go to Amazon and get a 10-inch by 2-inch regular home water filter. These, if you buy like in groups of 12 or more, you can get them as low as $1 a piece. They go in here. It comes with a head. Of course, you want to take the wrapping off, but I don't unwrap my filters until I'm ready to use them. So I've just make sure it doesn't have a bleed button. It'll have a red button here. Stay away from those, because sometimes they can leak and you can accidentally oxygenate your beer. So you just want no bleeders on the top. This was $19 from Amazon minus the filter. And then I've got a few dollars worth of hoses and, of course, a CMBecker disconnect. And so what I do is I hook one end on the output of the conical that we're using, and then I can connect this to the liquid side of a ball lock keg. You want to purge the keg first with CO2 to get any oxygen out. Burp the keg, attach this, and then push the liquid through the filter. And it is super simple. It's a cheap, easy way of not having cloudy beer. And I know it's hard to see, but that's a 1 micron filter, 2-week-old beer that I've got conditioning in a keg. So it's super easy to do, and it's not a lot of money.
And this is an episode you're going to want to watch the YouTube video on, but I'll link to that filtration. What I wanted to mention, or what I wanted to ask, because it popped in my head, is there any volume lost? And it might be a dumb question, but is there some?
You're going to lose what's in here. It's a little over a quart. You know, this has to fill up first before it can push liquid out. But typically, the loss is about the same as if you were going to try to pull the liquid out of a fermenter and save whatever liquid's left with the trub. Because keep in mind, you can go all the way to the bottom, because this is going to catch the yeast in the filter.
It's
a trade-off.
That's a great point. I didn't even think about that. You can send it all through that. Mm-hmm. And it will catch the trub for you.
Yeah, so it's about the same amount of loss.
Us Luddites who are still using auto siphons handheld are having to.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with that. And another thing too is the people listening say, "Hey, James, I don't have a high-end conical that I can pressurize." Don't worry about it. You can use your auto siphon into a keg. You just got to have 2 kegs. So then what you do is once you get your you collect your beer into your first keg, then take another keg, connect it between the two, liquid to liquid, and then push it with CO2 gas into the other keg, and you've got filtered beer.
Boom. See, are you sure you're not an engineer? Come on.
No, I'm a MacGyver.
Yeah, you're
MacGyver the shit out of things.
But yours actually work. When I MacGyver stuff, it's like, hey, babe, watch what this is going to do. And it's like a glorified fart machine when you sit on a chair or something. It's nothing worth talking about on a podcast. But filtration. So I didn't know. Do you and Todd both filter batches?
Just me.
Okay. Every batch?
Patient. I'm not. Todd will wait a year for a beer to be ready. I can't even wait 3 weeks. I really want to try it. But what I have to do is I have to have lots of batches brewed to where it allows that first batch, all of them time to condition. But I'm usually 4 to 6 weeks tops for me. And I'm like, I'm done. I'm ready to keg.
And just to round out the topic so I can say I covered it, it's probably a dumb question, and I think I know the answer. The answer is yes, use a new one every time. But you're using a new filter every time?
Yes.
Yeah. I assume, even if it's the same.
It is possible. I guess you could sanitize or sterilize the but I mean, they're too cheap.
They're so cheap. Yeah, they're so cheap. But also too, and I would only imagine doing that. Like if you ever did your alt beer Carlson brew pub, would you filter every batch with new filters, or could you keep the thing rolling? If I was going
to open up a brew pub, I would have a commercial clarifier.
And
we saw those at the trade shows. Yeah. They've got centrifugal ones that are really cool.
Yeah, and remember the one we saw. Oh, what was the name of that brewery that they had the launch party at? And we got to hang out.
One.
Yeah, and we remember it was nice, and we got to hang. Yeah. Michael Ferguson showed it to us, or he was explaining it to us behind like the countertop area, and I forget the name of the place now. Darn it! And my dad has a cup of it. Dad, if you're listening, you need to write in. It's the cup that hard ditzy cup looking, actual though reusable that you use to catch foam. In whatever's the name on that. That's where the launch party was, and they had one, and my mind was blown first off by the size of it. And like, oh yeah, that just filters. And they're like, oh yeah, that piece of equipment was like $12,000. And I was like, $12,000. They're like, yeah, that's a lower end one. I was like, oh my gosh. Okay. Commercial filtration is a whole different beast though than what we're talking about, obviously. And so I had no idea that you're still filtering. I knew you did from time to time.
I do some batches. I do. A lot of the Pilsners that I do, especially if they're green and I want to make space for a new batch, I'll filter them into kegs and then just move the kegs into another cold storage area so they can condition, and then I can run a new batch into the conical.
That totally
which is what I did on last week. I brewed the rest of that old malt, and then I added some chocolate, some Carafa too, and some. I think I did Pearl. No, I did Hallertau and Spalter I just pitched it right on top of the yeast that was from this smash, and it fermented out. It's diacetyl resting right now.
Perfect. I like that we can tie two questions in from one.
Yeah, exactly.
So then would you, to wrap it up for Kent, thumbs of approval of buying one of those filtration systems from an online retailer I won't name again, Mr. Burns?
Sure. Not me personally, but they make a big round flat filter. And I think the thought process behind that is the more surface area that you can filter, the less chance it'll get stopped up. But I had a friend, Clay, which by the way, he loved the goodies we sent him the other day.
Awesome.
Especially the hydrometer and the refractometer little stickers. He thought that was the funniest thing he's ever seen. But anyway, he bought one of those and used it, and he said it was a real pain in the butt because it tried to leak a lot and it stopped up a lot. I can tell you with these, I haven't had that issue with this setup. Why don't
we, Todd, I know Todd will be up for it. Why don't we make a kit? Everything sans the filter. They go on Amazon, get their own filter, and we just make the kit with the rest of it, the CMB distonette and tubing, and the connections for the filter, and boom, it could be a very affordable DIY, kind of like what we do with jockey bots, is where we do sell complete jockey bots, but a lot of people do our DIY where it's just the internals, because they're like, I can source a thing cheaper than what y'all are going to get it for me, and
filter media.
Yeah, and
but if we bought enough of those, we could sell them retail at a fairly decent price. Maybe you could get it under $2 a piece. That would be great. I'm just spitballing, so I don't know for sure. But one thing to keep in mind with this type of setup, or any type of filter setup, is you've got to push the beer through it. Yeah. It won't gravity flow through. So that's the reason why I brought up, you can put it into a keg, but you got to have 2 kegs.
Yeah, for the pressure.
One to hold the unfiltered beer, and then you've got to hook this between the first keg and the second keg, and then push it through with CO2.
Absolutely. But do you think filtration is more like, because I speak a lot from an anecdotal bubble, and I admit that, like, I don't have industry insight or whatever. I don't think filtration is as widespread as it might be. Do you think a lot of homebrewers are filtering their beer, and I'm wrong?
No, I don't think so at all. I think the only time you run into filtration is commercial breweries that need to have that product out and bottled or canned or kegged, because that's how they make money, and they really can't afford to let the beer set and clarify on their own. So another thing too is proprietary yeast strains. They don't want any of that to end up in the bottle for somebody to repopulate.
Absolutely, which we would do.
Hell yeah, I'd do that all day long.
We should. If Schlussel didn't filter their beer, we would have the secret. We would have had the secret.
Exactly.
You'd be brewing Schlussel right now. We tell Todd to shove it, and we'd go start the bar. But yes, Kent, thank you so much for submitting your question. Again, if y'all submit a question to us and we take it on the show, we give you a $25 gift card to kegconnection.com. So moving on, question number 3 comes from our buddy Alan P., who also used the submission form at homebrewhappyhour.com. Alan wrote in, Kolsch, now that I have your attention, Josh, I'd like to ask you for your opinions on flow control. And by my opinions, he means Todd and James. Kedland.
No, Todd's the real pro.
I know he is. I know, yeah. Kedland, which is they're Australian, so I don't know if they even sell stateside, but another competitor. Todd, you're gone, and look at me. I'm dropping the ball, naming all of our competitors on air. Kedland has a video on flow control disconnects, and it seems too good to be true. If I use their flow control disconnect, which isn't cheap, what would be different than if I used a CMB faucet or even your line inserted device? Thanks for taking my question, Alan. Whoa, Alan, let's turn this into an infomercial real quick. I'm not wearing my CMBecker hat. No, kidding aside, obviously, what we like to be very straightforward in that you are CMBecker International. But you believe in your products. It's not that you're not pushing things that you don't wholeheartedly believe in. And I know this because I've been around you long enough to know that you wholeheartedly believe in them. This I had to look these up because I've never seen these stateside. When he said Kedland,
I haven't either. In fact, until I read this question, I didn't know such a thing existed.
So I found them, and a lot of retailers have them on their site, even stateside, but a lot of them are out of stock right now. And I don't know if it's because they're newly popular.
Well, it's because they're getting them from China, and in China right now it's taking. There's a 3 to 4 week lead time on just getting a shipment out.
I was letting people connect the dots, James. No, you're absolutely right.
I'll tell them.
Yeah. Well, it was so
they're
funny.
A roll of pain in CMBecker's side. I'll tell you that.
Was such a funny conversation to watch you have on the phone when I'm up there is when people you sell to, which are retailers that aren't Keg Connection and Homebrew Supply, and they're telling you their woes of the competitors' disconnects because of what's going on with China, like this whole year, and you're just sitting there like, I've told y'all.
Got product on the shelf, ships out of Texas every day, y'all.
Exactly. We keep it in stock. This is German-made, American assembled right here. We support our product. I've seen people call you, and now I am sounding like an infomercial. But I have seen people call you for support, and you drop everything to do it, and then they're like, man, that other people, and we're talking about wholesale buyers, so they're buying thousands at a time from some company that then never answers their phone ever again. and these people are getting, replies of, oh, what do I do with my leaky disconnect? And so I looked up this product, and Kedlane, I'm sure they're great people. We have a lot of listeners in Australia. I've shown y'all our stats before.
Yeah.
I mean, we've got
a lot of CMBecker customers there too.
We do. And we thank y'all. And especially, we need to find a good reason to go to Australia, to have like a meetup. If I
don't know if I can handle the flight over there.
I could, just enough Benadryl and whiskey. Oh,
I may have to just let you two take care of that,
I know you are CMBecker. He wouldn't take me. It would really be you and Todd. But what I did look up from this, first off, Kedland makes great videos. I want to get one of the kind of signs they have in the back of their videos. Not that says Kedland, obviously. That says Joshua or Homebrew Happy Hour would make more sense. But I looked up. They do look interesting. Here's some concerns I have on flow control disconnects. All of the negative feedback I've read across any of the retailers' websites or on videos on them is that if you have a problem with it, they leak. That's like the number one issue of problems. When people run into a problem with them, that problem is 9 out of 10 times going to be leaking. That's not
let me
good.
ask you this. Is the leak internal, which would not be good because then you'd oxidize what you're pumping into the, or is it external? I mean, I'm honest to God, I've never seen this product until you brought this question. I didn't know they existed.
I would imagine external because that's what people would probably notice first and be able to call in or write in their complaint. So I'd assume it's external. I didn't get into.
Yeah, probably so because you're choking down the flow. So you're trying to balance at the keg, which to me, I think it wouldn't be as efficient as if you were balancing where the faucet's dispensing the beer. And
you read my mind because that's what I was going to ask.
Yeah.
So normally the kind of flow control questions for comparison that we get are like, hey, it's not that y'all's are a little bit more than I could just get this Perlit 650 or whatever. And Perlit, great company. We love them. Joe, we miss you, and happy retirement. But we always tell them like, well, there's a difference because the compensation that's being done in the shank from a CMBecker is proper restriction. And it's that big because it needs to be, because here's how, in what we call proper, we'll walk them through the diagram and show them what it's doing and how it's more controlled and refined. And it's not just choking it. It's actual refined where, and with the creamer action and everything, it's a pouring experience to get the perfect pour, not just a drip pour for lower foam. And I imagine at the disconnect side of things, I don't know for me personally if I would trust the control there. But again, we're both admitting ignorance. We don't know this product, so it may work.
We don't.
It may work super good. We just don't know.
What it's doing is you're just balancing at the keg versus the faucet. And with our system, we use a bit larger ID line, and then we just balance at the head.
And when you and to cover his part about the inline flow control, he called the line inserted device. We would recommend you put that as close to the tap as well when you do lines. You don't do that down by the keg. You do that if it's a tower, you do it right outside the tower so you have easy access to it. But most of the time, these are inserted on shank lines. You can do it right up there with a few inches left going into the shank and adjust it up there because, like you said, the restriction
the restriction is just basically a resistance. Or you're wanting to slow the flow down, and then that balances. The way we were taught at the Micromatic Beer Draft School is once you have your system set up, you can fine tune it with the choker line. And the way you can tell, there's a chart that you have to go by with length and pressure and all of that. But really, you open and close the tap until you can't see bubbles coming through the clear line off the tap, the coupler. And then you just keep adding resistance until that goes away, and then you're balanced.
Another issue I could see is circumstantial and anecdotal for people like me who have kegerators. So you open the door and kegs are, one behind another. It's not a top-down kind of view like a keezer would be, or most keezers are. It doesn't seem super convenient, James, to have to control it at the disconnect. Because normally I'm only going to the disconnects for troubleshooting or removing or adding the keg to the line. You know what I mean?
And another thing to think about too, you would have to continue once you have a keg and it's at a certain pressure, a certain carbonation on a certain level, as that keg, the liquid goes away and it gets replaced with dead space of CO2, it's going to affect the balance. So what you have to do is you have to just split the difference between almost empty and full, and that for a non-flow control system where you're using 3/16 ID direct draw and everything's balanced, it should work fairly decent, but you're going to see a little more foaming that you wouldn't see when it was full, or vice versa. But the cool thing about a CMBecker faucet is you can adjust it as you're pouring versus stopping, either opening a door and adjusting it or going around in like mine. I've got mine going through a wall, so I've got to go back into the mudroom. If I had it set up that way and adjust it there, then come back, or have somebody yelling, okay, it's clean. It's just so much easier. It is, maybe it's a little more money, but after what you told me, what they're selling the disconnects for, maybe not so much.
Yeah, I think
just go ahead and get the flow control CMBecker faucet versus.
I think that they're going for between $40 and $50 on average. Yeah. Where, like you said, you could get an X1, which is flow control from CMBecker with the shank. It comes with the shank because the compensating is being done in there. And it's proper flow control. And I think Tech Connection, I just pulled it up. They're selling it for like $50. Yeah. So in my opinion, and again, this is where like we just have to tell you guys, obviously James is CMBecker International, and obviously we sell their products. But with that disclaimer, they know that. Yeah, with the brand new listener going, man, these guys, they're really all about CMBecker. What's up with that? But
do they have a late night info?
Yeah. So tonight on Homebrew Happy Hour, brought to you by CMBecker. Alan did specifically ask, though, that's why it's relevant, if he just used the CMBecker faucet or an inline flow control. Look, I've used inline flow controls, Alan. I love them to death. But if I went back and did it again, I would just do X1s to start off to be in my budget. X1s.
Or if you have the means, get the V10.
That's what. Yes,
the Ferrari of the.
If you get the V10, faucets, you're set for life. And then I shouldn't disparage the X1 because if you take care of them, you're set for life. The X1s are great.
If you go into a Twin Peaks, every single faucet in a Twin Peaks is an X1, so they're good faucets too.
Exactly, and they last forever. Mm-hmm. James will tell you how he talks himself out of sales all the time by just sending them rebuild kits.
Because that's what they're designed for. I mean, they're not throwaway. We don't make throwaway stuff.
I know that. I love that though. You have so many stories of people calling you and like, hey, it's just about time to replace these faucets. It's been like 12 years. And you're like, we can just send you the rebuild kit for like $4 a pop or whatever it is. And,
that particular brewery was 30 taps.
I know. Yeah.
So the conversation went like, hey, James, I need to go ahead and just order 30 new V10s. And I'm like, yes.
And then they told you why.
Said, well, I've got a couple leaking and we're using them now. So we probably just need to get new ones. And I was like,
because you're a good guy. See, that's why Todd doesn't put me in sales, because I'd be like, oh, absolutely. Let me show you. I'll give you a discount.
Yeah. So I was able to sell her rebuild kits for all 30 faucets for
much cheaper,
next to nothing. And she called me back and she's like, they're all working like brand new.
And Todd was like, why did we make these good yeah, because people, unfortunately, and I'm going to go on probably a short rant. People are so used to products not being like, you hear the older generations, like older than you, saying they don't make stuff like they used to. And
they don't.
That's what I mean. Exactly. They don't. And so people are getting used to that. So then when you, as a manufacturer and salesman of these products, correct them like, no, you don't need to just replace it. It's okay. I can help you get it back and work. Here's why it's leaking. Because stuff wears out the more you use it. But we have a cheap rebuild kit. Don't buy a whole new faucet. This is the part that you need, And I think people do like that about you, though, and the company, CMBecker, because
I'm a phone call away.
That's what I mean.
If anybody has any issues,
exactly,
just call me. I'm usually the one answering the phone anyway.
Exactly. So, Alan,
it's not a big deal.
Yeah, and that was my attempt at us not sounding too infomercially. So, Alan, thank you so much for submitting your question, Mr. Carlson. We got one more question for this week's show. Came from our buddy Paul L., who also used the submission form at homebrewhappyhour.com. Paul wrote, "I know you guys keg, and I know you force carbonate. So I have a question for you. What is your I know. Todd's not here, and I did a carbonation question just for you. What is your exact method for forced carbonating? There are a lot of opinions online, and what I've been doing seems to consistently produce low carbonation levels. I will rock the keg on my leads at 30 psi for about 3 minutes, and then stick it in my teaser on 10 psi for a full day before I serve. Still, my beers seem a little flat. Would it be bad to pull the keg out and rock it again, or is that a no-no? I hope you can help me out. Prost, Paul." Like that German at the end. I'll be the authority here, Mr. Carlson. No, I will have a link, not embedded video. I got to figure out how to do that on WordPress where it doesn't embed the video. But Todd has a great video on forced carbonation.
He does.
His video
is really good at it.
And his method is wonderful. And Dad, I rewatched his video, and this question is very relatable. I usually will pick questions I can relate to get answers from you and Todd, and then bring it back to my dad and be like, thank God someone wrote in that question. Todd would tell you per the video, he forced carbs at like 35, 40. And he does it for about 5 minutes, or he on the lower side of 5, like between 3 and 5. And then
start checking it at 3 at that kind of pressure.
Correct. Yes. And so at 3, he puts it online in his teaser and he tests it just to see the levels at. If the level seems good, he'll leave it on there at, he'll usually do 8 to 12. And again, I want to say he's usually on the lower side. It depends on the style. If he's doing like a Belgium, obviously it's higher on the scale. If he's doing like if it's a stout, he'll do it at like 8. But it's that little window right between the 8 and 12. And he usually is no stranger to start serving soon. Like Todd's not like no, you got to wait like 3 days. Or no, Todd in his beers, he's not here, so nobody who writes me negative feedback about this can say, "Oh, you just suck up to Todd because he's your boss." No, his beers are always the best carbonated out of our bunch. Yeah. His beers are always on point. His carbonation levels are always immaculate. I mean, just beautiful. Like I use my dad and I tend to undercarb if we're gonna over or under.
I know I do.
Yes, it would again though. It's better to under than over because there's no coming back from the over, or it's harder to come back when you're over. With the under, to answer your question, Paul, about would it be bad to pull the keg out and rock it again? No, pull it out.
No, go for it.
Exactly. Todd would 100%, and I know this because I asked him this before, if like, oh wait, I can just pull it back out, and he was so degrading, James. He's like, why wouldn't you think you could pull it out and rock it again? I was like, oh, I just don't know. He goes, no, I want to hear. Why did you think you couldn't? I was like,
give me an
I know, and I was like, well, I don't know. The first thing I said was something like, maybe I would oxidate it. And he goes, with what oxygen? It's full of CO2. And I was like, no, oh, you got me. Oh, you got me. You're right, Todd.
Yeah, well, my suggestion, if I know from what Paul's saying is he's going a full 30 psi,
right?
3 minutes, and then just sticking it in,
right?
Get one of the go online, get one of those picnic taps, and have it right there in your lap. If you've got it in your lap, like I do, and I rock it back and forth, I'm hooked up on the gas side because it doesn't matter if you're going to rock it back and forth. If you're going to stand it up and rock it, you want to be carving on the liquid side because that tube goes all the way down in the liquid and the CO2 comes through. But if you've got it on your lap, you can have it connected to the gas. You know what? You'd need a flow control faucet because if you're at 30 psi and you're using a picnic tap, it's going to blow like a fire hose.
And you showed that in the presentation. And I think you made that point where like, this is perfect for testing. If you're not just going to use the event faucet, the flow control event faucet, you can like for an event, you can literally y'all. I remember in that presentation, y'all, or maybe it was a practice run. It may not have been the full one. I'll go back and watch it. But I remember y'all talking about this is the perfect time to test, or perfect reason to have one of these is because when you're forced carbing, right there in your lap, you can test the carbonation level at 30 psi to make sure that it's what it needs to be. Because you're right, a picnic tap, or what some people call Cobra taps, is not going to handle the pressure.
So what you'd have to do is literally you'd have to stop, set it up right, turn the gas off, purge the keg enough to where you can dispense into a little glass, which that's only just a few seconds.
Exactly, yeah.
And at least you can get it. Now, pour enough to where you can don't just pour a little shot because you're going to get a little bit of foam, but pour enough to where you can see the carbonation and, more importantly, taste it. But sample it until it tastes the way you want it. And then when you put it in the kegerator, it's ready to go.
Absolutely. And I don't want to cut the question short just because we can, but Todd's video is how we do it. So it's like, go watch it. It will be in the show notes. It's probably going to embed as the full video because I don't think WordPress can distinguish. But that'll make it easier on you. Just go into our show notes.
I'd rather watch a video.
Yeah, go watch it. And that is literally what we follow. there is no other secret way that we force carb. And I don't know if we can speak on authority of the million other ways. Because like Paul was saying, there's a lot of opinions on there. There are people who use carb stones for the whole process, where I would say we've done it, my dad and I, before, and it did not yield the results we wanted. So I don't think I'll ever use a carb stone again for carbonating beer. Water, perfect. But beer, I think we're done with that. There are people who say I leave it on 25 for 5 days. You know, they make up numbers, right? Like, I leave it on 25 PSI for 5 business days, and then I serve at 10 PSI.
I'm like, I don't want to wait that long. But there's charts online that give you carbonation levels and temperature and time.
That was the next thing I was going to say is there are a ton of charts if you're trying to get mathematical about it. But the video Todd does has yielded the best results, in my opinion. And you're just going to have to book a ticket to the ranch, and if you don't believe me, because his beer is always on point in regards to carbonation. And lately it's been on point for flavor too. I hate giving him credit, but
he's turned into quite a brewer.
Yeah, if we do the bar, we have to bring him on board. Like there's no way around. There's no way
he's
around.
He's very meticulous.
There's no way.
I thought I was. He makes me look like an idiot.
He does. He makes me. Yeah, if he makes you look like an idiot, I'm a Neanderthal. Did you see that meme?
I can remember giving him hell about it. He literally checks the temperature of the mash with 3 different laboratory thermometers in 3 different locations. And then you're like, because I built the system, and he's like, well, James, this is not reading the same. And like, well, it's not, because it's, there's going to be fluctuations in temperature throughout the mash. And that's just an average coming out. But anyway,
when you talk to
Todd,
Todd,
gave him hell about it, but you know what? He's kicked my ass on his beers.
When you talk to Todd about any other topic, he's a troglodyte. He's a Neanderthal. But then when it comes to brewing, all of a sudden he's Professor Burns. And
I mean, you think about it. The last 3 years, he's really stepped up his brewing game.
Oh my gosh. I know. I hate giving him credit. He doesn't listen to the show, I don't think, if he's not on it. So he won't hear me sucking up to him because he's my boss. But anyway, James, that does it for this week. One thing I forgot to mention at the top of the show that I do want to mention right now, it has nothing to do with brewing. And if you don't want to listen to it, I don't care. But this is my 1-year anniversary for my daughter since she had her craniotomy. And
congratulations.
Thank you. We are having a celebration this weekend, just internal, like immediate family, not internal, immediate family stuff. Because of COVID stuff, people don't want to come. And Esther's technically still immunocompromised, so my wife is playing it safe. But I'm ready in future years to have, we're calling it Esther's Special Day, 1 year since they removed the ganglioglioma from her brain, and she's tumor-free. We've had 5 MRIs since, and, 4 or 5 MRIs since, and she's been tumor-free since September of last year. So we are. I know. I wanted to time date it because one day my daughter's going to come and look at the stuff I created on the internet, and I want her to know I talked about her once. So everybody who's ever said good well wishes to us about Esther, or who were there for me last year, I really appreciate you guys, and just giving y'all an update, because it's as much as I joke around, my daughters are my life, and being able to celebrate this has been just the coolest thing ever. Like, I've not been more excited for pretty much anything, but anyway,
very cool.
It is very cool. So anyways, Mr. Carlson, I'm going to see you next week, my friend, for episode 199 with Horst Dornbush. In the meantime, I'll talk to you later.
All right. Have a good weekend.
You too. And that will do it for this episode of the Homebrew Happy Hour. If you have a question you would like us to discuss on a future episode, you can go to homebrewhappyhour.com and click on that submit a question link at the top of the page, or now you can call or text them in by using 325-305-6107. Thank you to our show's sponsor, homebrewsupply.com, for supporting us and the homebrewing community. Right now, new deal, get 15% off homebrew kegerator kits plus ball lock kegs for as low as $30 when bought within a kit. It's a limited time offer available at homebrewsupply.com. On behalf of the absent Todd Burns, Mr. James Carlson, and the Pearl Media Network, I'm Joshua Stubing. Thank you for listening.
This program is made possible by the checkbook of Mr. Todd Burns and by contributions to our newly launched Patreon by viewers like you. Visit patreon.com/homebrew happy hour and join our community. Thank you.